to like, you have a knight on f3. Like, when do you have to worry that much about the g2 pawn? And he's found it.
Yeah. In freestyle chess, that's when you got to keep your eyes on different weak squares or weak spots. And he'd seen it coming by now. You see the speed with which f3 comes out.
Man.
And he's got a minute and a half.
A storm is a brewing. A storm is a brewing. The bishop's coming to b6, and we aren't talking about full-fledged compensation. We're talking about overwhelming compensation.
Man, Hans is pumped. He was just like going like this already. Like, here it comes. So against bishop f2, is black threatening bishop takes f3?
Absolutely. Great spot. That's why Jan had to move his queen back.
Aye.
Let me tell you what Hans is not going to do. He is not going to just bail out, I think, with bishop b5.
I think his position was so mouth-watering, he just pulled out a napkin, Danya.
He did exactly what I said he wouldn't do.
Just taking the pawn.
Did you hear that? That was perfectly orchestrated.
Yeah.
Because his point is this. First of all, you can't take on a7. And he's not bailing out. He is playing for the advantage. And what I missed, I'm not ashamed to say, I thought white had e4. I forgot that the queen was then making contact with the rook. And Hans would still have this devastating check on b6. So
Why
this is actually
so devastating.
Well, because you have to play bishop f2. And then black plays rook fd8 and white is paralyzed. It's actually incredibly deep positional thinking by Hans, understanding that even though white has the bishop pair, the bishops are completely paralyzed. And it's very hard for Jan to make a move.
Okay, so... Oof.
Like, make a move.
Yeah. It's
Bishop
coming
C3.
Any minute now.
Bishop c3. You also have to worry about the e3 square.
Right. No, I can't give up e3 because you also have knight d5 coming at will, right? So maybe bishop f2.
Maybe e3 and bishop f2. This is where Jan has shown such like sang-froid. He just doesn't panic. He finds the practical solution, and he always tries to find an opportunity to get his pieces active. But this is a very difficult situation for him. Maybe queen d3.
Yeah, I was going to suggest maybe like queen a4 with bishop f2, bishop b6 to try and diffuse things. But black trades on f2 with check and maybe keeps the queen going.
If white plays e3, Hans probably is hovering over the d8 square with his rook to infiltrate d2, and that will be potentially an overwhelming amount of force.
Yeah.
So he takes.
Yeah.
Great decision by Jan. This is the lesser evil.
Yeah, I wanted to play e3, but I was seeing lots and lots of problems with it.
I'm noticing a pattern like rook c6, knight h5, knight g3 is nothing to laugh at in the future.
Oof. Especially if white concedes king h1 versus playing e3.
But look at how Jan gets his bishop out. Nevertheless, he's like bullets raining around him. He's finding ways to coordinate his rooks, but still so many weak squares like knight e3, rook c3, and he's down to 90 seconds. Whew.
If he played rook fc1, could Hans even take the pawn on b4 with the knight? You think he would go for mate?
Well, queen at f2, maybe there's... Okay, yeah. No, also b4 was hanging, you're right.
Forces the knight to pick a spot. b4 is one of those available, right?
Yeah, b4, e3. I mean, rook c3 is tempting, but then queen b2, and your pieces get kind of stuck in mud. Nepo with a very practical move, forcing Hans to make a decision, which will force him to burn some time.
Right.
I don't see a problem with knight takes b4, honestly.
Yeah. Nepo has very little time himself.
But he goes mining for gold.
Yeah. Wants something great. Maybe potentially the problem with knight b4 is even though you can support it with a5, maybe you just can't ever reposition it because white covers, c6, d5, d3, c2 with the bishop. You just get frozen where you are.
And now the knight is a parachute. If it needs to press the eject button, it can come back to f5.
Mm-hmm. And he's limiting that bishop. He's trying to make the bishop on e4 bad, or as less good as he can.
Back rank is weak for white. It's very important to note that the knight is controlling g2. So Hans might play h5. No, h5, bishop takes g6, actually.
Queen g6, queen e3.
And queen e3. Easy to blunder. Something like that. I just did.
Okay, and there could come a moment where you play a5, but for now, a5, b5 doesn't look...
I'm partial to rook d4, actually.
How about king g7?
Your predictions, ladies and gentlemen. King g7, probably much more mature.
Getting off of the light squares.
The adults are back in the room. I'm a kid in a candy store.
Centralizes, perplexing Jan. Jan
I think
did not think that was good.
Hans has an idea of eventually dislodging the bishop with f5.
Mm-hmm.
And Hans is like, make a move. Well, queen d3 is possible.
Yeah. He also has this queen d1 back rank mate if white wandered in the wrong direction.
Ooh. Wait a second. So trade will drop the b4 pawn. And it's probably still a draw after that, with a rook coming to c7. But Jan keeps the queens. What a gutsy move.
Yeah.
Holy mokes.
King g7. I was thinking a while about this, but f8, a little bit looser, but defends the e-pawn.
Yeah, maybe he was afraid in the future of some check that the white queen could deliver on the long diagonal.
Right, but here he's got to watch out for a rook check on c8, right, if he ever wants to use his rook.
He's down on time. Maybe he'll send the g-pawn down the board. 20 seconds. Gotta move. Gotta move. Jan is so good at keeping the tension.
Wow.
Just like doesn't budge.
Yeah, it's all these little positional decisions that really...
Uh-oh. This is right about where Hans would like his king back on f7.
Yeah.
Rook c5. Or b5, rook c6. Jan's doing it again, seizing the initiative.
Yep. He can take the c-file here, double.
Building it up. Here's the thing, though. Hans has that knight on e3, so things could turn around very quickly.
Yeah.
With a queen.
Now
with
he seems to have just traded a superior rook for an inferior rook, right? So
Black is not risking here with a knight like that.
Yeah, he comes back to cover queen e1 mate.
Like, road's closed.
Mm-hmm.
Take the other freeway. And the dance macabre begins with the queens.
And with the clock, they're each dancing a death dance with their flags here.
And their hearts. They're beating fast.
Maybe like an e4 shot at some point.
Queen c7 was a Hans with a very risky move there. He is flirting with disaster. And Jan is threatening mate in one.
Yeah, queen f8.
He's got to move his king back. He blundered mate in one! He blundered mate in one! The nerves got to him at last.
Yeah.
And that is how it ends. That is how abruptly this match ends.